Hello, investors. It's Connor Bates, Associate Portfolio Manager at Revere Asset Management. Today is Sunday, October 20th, 4:23 p.m. Eastern Time, coming to you with this weekend's Revere Roundup weekend walkthrough. Hope you guys are having a good weekend, and I'm going to just dive into the markets and what I'm watching for the week ahead. So, as usual, the trend gauge, if you watch our nightly videos, nothing's changed. Four green arrows. Market is clearly in an uptrend with broad-based leadership and stock action. So good. It's always a good market when we have the four green arrows. So that's that. We'll take a look at the indexes and some stuff heading into the week. Alrighty. So we'll start with chart S&P 500, and not really a whole lot to say besides, it's an uptrend. We're building higher lows, riding the 21 higher, and there's no reason to fight it here. We got a tight 5-day range here, so maybe this week earnings are pick up this week, so maybe that's the catalyst to break it higher out of this digestion. The 60-minute 58.71, that's kind of the level, and you can see kind of wedging up here, kind of making an ascending triangle. We'll see if we get that breakout this week, but overall it looks great. RSP, this is the equal weight. Again, not a whole lot to say, just riding higher, trending up. QQQ, a little more. So I kind of wanted to talk about the shape of this chart. And in my view, it's it's a pretty classic VCP pattern, right? So we had this first contraction here, we had this second one, and just a couple of scenarios to think about. So 485.54, that's obviously a key level. You'd expect that to hold on any pullback. But at the same time, even if we pulled back to the 50-day, that would be like a third contraction in this multi-month VCP base. And as long as it, I'll kind of visualize it here. And as long as that held, that would look good. I think that'd be a buy on weakness opportunity. And then the other side is, maybe it just breaks back out through 500 into new highs. But that's a scenario on the Qs. But the structure of the chart looks great. Dow Jones just trending higher. Mid caps again look really good heading into next week. We just really been seeing for the last couple weeks is a lot of risk on action and more money into whatever you want to call it, speculative stocks and whatnot. But this really last 2 days, last week were super tight. It's not giving back any of this breakout. Russell 2000 again, similar look. If this takes out this candle day highs, it looks like it wants to rip into new highs. The VIX continues to live below 20. That's what we want to see. And, despite indexes being right at highs, VIX has room all the way down to, 14. And that's when, the market can really accelerate to the upside. The dollar rejecting the 200-day, just keep an eye on this. Even after this large rally here off the lows, gold, silver, Bitcoin, they're all breaking out and really strong. So the dollar hasn't really been affecting it too much. And look at gold here, another breaking out last week. And this has just been a really nice winner this year and just a really good spot to be. Gold stocks looks great. I mentioned on the video through 40, this could have some legs, and now it really accelerated on Friday. And a ton of these gold miners are breaking out from huge weekly to monthly consolidations. Silver, was forming that handle and finally got that expansion through 30. And this looks really good. So this is whatever you want to call it, but this is like a pretty big cup and handle base that it's breaking out of. And there was a lot of supportive action in many of the other individual silver stocks. Bitcoin looks good, moving higher up the right side. You still got some supply over here to work with, but it looks good. And the weekly gives it a little bit of a better picture, kind of breaking out of this declining tops trend line. Definitely Bitcoin's been seeing some money flow. Bonds just kind of, bear flagging here. TLT, similar thing, might lose the 200-day. And then rates, see with bonds coming lower, rates are getting a bid here. But surprisingly, with this move in rates, small caps have been fine and regional banks, the the notable rate sensitive sectors haven't been hit too hard. So that's good to see. So that's the indexes review and stuff. We'll hop in some breath. This is the pretty market monitor. I like to use this. Basically, it's a good, risk on, risk off indicator. And when you see the number of stocks up 4% plus in a day, 280, and number of stocks up 25% plus in a quarter, over 1,200. That's good to see. That means breakouts are working and it's a good environment to buy strength. So this is the NASDAQ composite with the percentage of stocks above the 20, 50, and 200-day moving average. So I use this kind of two ways. This can be good to spot negative divergences, right? If the indexes are moving higher, but the participation in the stocks isn't there. That's sometimes when you can get those pullbacks, but we're seeing participation break out. These are all consolidating against these big downtrend lines, and now they're breaking through. So that could be a tell that maybe the NASDAQ comp wants to break out here and catch up to the S&P. Here's the S&P. Again, just pretty low volatility, moving higher. And just one thing to note is these breadth indicators, you could argue they're somewhat stretched, right? 77% of the stocks are above the 50-day. So how much room is there left? And when it gets to, 90, that's sometimes when you can see a pullback, but you can also see digestion through time versus price. So, a lot of the secondary indicators are a little mixed because here's the NASI, right? And this is the best indicator to me for quote unquote an easy dollar environment. And this is when you see, IWM working and some of these growth stocks really accelerate to the upside. But there's a lot to like here because you see this back here. Let me inspect. You see that this run here that it had, the market was really hot here, but ever since then, you had a sustainable trend here. Here was another nice push, but this is like a huge VCP pattern to me, one contraction, two contractions, three getting super tight. The indicator itself is on a buy signal above the 10 EMA. And then, you get when uptrends start from, an oversold condition, that's often best because that gives your stocks, the indexes more room. And you can see this is just hooking up from, mid-range / oversold. So that's good to see. And you can see this can stay overbought for quite some time. And look at so I have a chart of the S&P below with this indicator, and you can see right when this hooked back up, that's when the S&P just slowly trended up. And then obviously this came down, the market went up. That was largely due to the fact of the concentration in a lot of the mega cap tech names. This is the NAMO. This is the NASDAQ McClellan Oscillator Index. And basically this above zero, that's just showing good momentum in the market. You can look at the MACD here. It's just curling back above the zero line as well. And basically, sometimes this one's good for extremes. So here, August 5th low, almost every stock bottom there, and the indexes as well. That was that big flush and then closed roughly green on the day. And then even when this gets stretched, when you see days that this hits 85, it's likely, you could argue it could be a short-term blow off top as you'll probably see tons of stocks moving. But to keep it short, this is good. This is above zero, so good momentum in the market right now. And then we'll take a look at this one. This is the NASDAQ composite stocks above the 5-day moving average. And again, this is just another little short-term indicator that I sometimes like to look at. And basically, when this gets below, below 5, 10, 20, whatever you want to call it, there's some fear in the market. And then once it gets into 90s, you could argue that a lot of people are excited and maybe that's not the time to be packing on exposure, but pretty neutral. So no huge signals from a lot of the breadth indicators right now. So we'll get to some stocks that I'm watching for the week ahead. So one thing I just want to preface is, I could show you 50 stocks. I mean, so many things look good right now. A lot of things are extended as well. At Revere, we're pretty much fully invested in the market right now, with about max list of names right now. So basically our our process right now is cutting the weeds and watering the flowers, and that's kind of how we evaluate the positions on a day-to-day basis. We're evaluating, is there a new theme emerging? Is money going into a different spot? And so, but right now, we're pretty positioned, so we're just monitoring that. But I still got a fair amount of stocks to show. But before I get into stocks, I want to talk about some ETFs and sectors. WGMI, this is the Bitcoin miners, and really strong. MSTR is leading the way, but last week we saw a lot of volume, big moves in many of the other mining stocks. A lot of them are kind of low price. We're not going to buy those, but it just shows that the group's strong, and this is a good depiction of the group. You can see this is breaking out of a nice little flat base here, back above all the moving averages. 50-day starting to slope back up. If we look at the weekly, right, this looks really good. This has definitely room to the upside. DAPP, this is another one. Similar look. This also has some like fintech exposure in it as well. So that's kind of, but it also has like a lot of those, a lot of the crypto miners as well. But it has like names like Square, which kind of has the angle, Bitcoin angle, and that fintech payment processor angle as well. But these two sectors are definitely a focus, and MSTR is definitely the leader in the space right now. Real estate, I'll take a look at that. I like this sector as well. Pulled back to the 50-day after a strong move up here, kind of broke this declining tops trend line, and now is forming a tight range here. Favorite stock for this sector here is Zillow. This looks really good, but if we take it another step further, home builders, another related sector, looks great. And then you have names like Toll Brothers, Lennar, KBH. These are three home builders that all look good. So these sectors continue to be strong. XBI, really excited about this one. I feel like I've been excited for this one for a while now, and it just never has been able to break out. But basically, this is getting super tight, and maybe this is finally getting ready to move. You can see the moving averages, the 821 and 50 are basically all touching each other. And that's kind of a launch pad setup. And that can be a signal that expansion could be close when they get super coiled up. But basically, 103 is kind of the big level that triggers that big picture breakout. Obviously, 100 is important as well. That's just a big psych level. It's sitting right there. But each time it's got into this 103 spot, it's just one rejection, two, three, four, five. So the more touches of a resistance line, it eventually it will break one way or another, and the more rejections just kind of fuels it up for the move if it happens. Weekly looks fantastic, and we've been seeing good action in biotech stocks. VKTX, look how tight this one is. I mean, this is extremely tight here on the right side. They report earnings this week. This one's had a lot of buyout speculation and that, but we'll see what they have to say on earnings. But nevertheless, the chart's super tight and looks like, if it breaks out through 70, this could get a nice move, and this should help the biotech sector. And then it would be nice to see some pickup in M&A activity, new IPOs, and those type of things sometimes help get sectors moving and whatnot. And then semiconductors, this is another big tell this week. Obviously, factors into my thoughts on the QQQ chart, but despite TSM's earnings last week, did not get the pop that you would have expected, especially with TSM super strong. So this was that big break lower when you had ASML and all those. They pre-released earnings on accident. They weren't good. But now this is you could argue this is a bear flag right here. So watch the 200-day on this one. And yeah, I mean, as long as this 200-day holds, it's fine. It's still trying to build higher lows, but if it, breaks that cycle, then this could show some weakness. But that's the sector. But basically, you just kind of want to follow the leaders, right? TSM, this looks good. I would like to see this hold 200 / the top of this base on any pullback if it's going to continue higher. NVIDIA is the other one. we'd welcome a handle here. I think that'd be super constructive. 100 to 140 in a couple of weeks is a pretty big move, but the structure of this chart looks great. If we look at the weekly, it's knocking on another base breakout there. And then some other ones that have recently, arms still hanging in there, holding above 150. You got this little tight base here on the right side. This is one of the better looking charts in the sector. And then we also have A-Lab. We own this in GROTECTION, and just total change of character from this one. It always had the fundamentals. It's got fantastic earnings and sales, but when price is doing this, it doesn't really matter about the fundamentals. But it started to carve that low, put in double bottom base here, got back above all the moving averages, pulled back, and then it had that catalyst, and it still holds this gap low, and this volume's got really nice. I mean, this is the volume on the up days, and then here on the pullback, look how light it was. So definitely some accumulation on this one, and this is shown itself as a leader as well in the space. And then no one really talks about this name, but PI, this is another strong one into highs. It kind of got whacked on Friday a little bit, but into the 21 day. So we'll see. So definitely Avgo is another one. This one looks really good, almost like a carbon copy of the NVIDIA chart. It's kind of handling out here. And like I said, like a handle here would look good. So those are the good ones. And just because ASML, LRCX, AMAT, just because those got smoked doesn't mean they're going to bring these ones down. The cream always rises to the top, and these are the leaders. But I'll show you ASML looks bad, LRCX looks bad, and AMAT just doesn't look great either. So, maybe they undercut and reclaim the 200 day. I don't know. But for now, obviously no touch for us. So that's some sectors. Let's take a look at some stocks. MicroStrategies. This is the best Bitcoin stock to own based on price. I think it's pretty clear. And you can see it. I talked about this one. I walked through my trade that I made for clients in this one, and it shot up through 200. And I think, a lot of people bought that breakout, and then it came back down in, shook people out, and then had a super strong statement day on Friday, getting back through 200 with a really nice volume. And Bitcoin's been pretty strong this weekend as well. So we'll see. But this is a pretty textbook 5-star base. Whether it continues, I mean, I don't know, but this has the look to it as well. And it definitely has a lot of similarities to SMCI earlier in February this year. And then even NVIDIA on that base in January, I believe. They kind of had some similar characteristics inside of the base. So that's MicroStrategies. HIMS, this one kind of, again, showing a little bit changing character, coming up the right side, put in a nice reversal here on Friday, and this one looks good for, potential new leadership and ads. It does have the earnings and the sales as well. Upstart, so the fintech theme is really strong. This showed that change in character back here when it gapped up on earnings on huge volume, then came back down in with the market, and then now it's reestablished itself. And this one looks really good. This has got a nice flag here, and could be actionable into next week. And then, look at the other ones, right? You have Affirm. This one looks good. Or I would just cover that when I get to the list. But yeah, this industry group is acting pretty good, and it's 108th out of 197, so has some room to move up. And on that topic, is that's kind of the sweet spot, is when you can find stocks breaking out of early stage bases when the industry group isn't as loved, because then you're catching the bulk of the move versus buying a stock in the 5th ranked industry group. It could have already had a huge move, so there might be less meat on the bone. So that's just something to think about. Robinhood, this one looks good as well. They had their Robinhood Legend event last week, and they talked about some really cool stuff. They're trying to make their brokerage more, professional trader-esque. It's primarily retail focused, but so that's an angle for them. They're adding SPX and RTY options as well. So that should bring some more revenue for them. And then they also have the crypto angle. You can buy Bitcoin on there, but this is flagging really nicely, and it broke out of the space the other week. Zillow, I mentioned this looks good for real estate. If XLRE is going to continue, this looks like the leader. I'll show the weekly chart here. You can see really big stage one base, and that's a common theme right now. Is a lot of names are breaking out of multi-month year stage one bases, and as we know that when you catch them early in stage two, that's when you can get a lot of alpha, and you could potentially hold on to a stock for months to years. Datadog, this one's kind of trying to come out of a double bottom base. 134.80 is the obvious pivot, but maybe if it gets up into there, rejects and forms a handle, or you got the 200-day support right here. This has kind of been lagging per se, but you can see relative strength line is kind of starting to outperform as well. And this is a big base. I'll show the weekly. Weekly looks really nice as well if it can break out. 140 looks like the big trigger, but we'll see. And then this computer software enterprise industry group here, a lot of good action in that one. You have names like IoT, Palantir, ServiceNow, which reports earnings this week, Monday, Net. So a lot of good stocks there. And that's what, you always want to look for multiple stocks in a group versus trying to buy one lone soldier in a weak group. And First Solar is a good example of that. Was like the best looking solar stock right here. Tried to break out, had a pretty big, it fouled pretty hard. It's down 20% since. And I think partly that's due to the fact that there's just no support within the group. Most of the charts there look pretty bad. Affirm, this is another one in that finance, payment processor, fintech group. And it's a little bit of a volatile one. This has got a decent ATR, so that should play a role when you're position sizing for this one, but still looks good. It pulled back just about to that high volume close from that earnings gap and the 21s right there. Put in a nice hammer and reversal, and we're definitely seeing a reversal here. The earnings are starting to turn around, sales as well. So we'll see. If we look at the weekly, this is just a big weekly base. You can argue this is a big cut inverse head and shoulders bottoming formation on this one. And this one kind of moves with IWM, Upstart. They all kind of move in sync. ALAB, I talked about that already. GLW, this is Corning. Again, this looks really good. Broke out. It had a really strong day on volume the other week, and now it's getting super tight on pretty low volume on the right side. Eli Lilly, this caught my eye last week, and I think it looks pretty actionable into next week. You have all these moving averages, super coiled, launch pad, like I was talking about earlier in the video, and you got a declining tops trend line here. And this is kind of trying to come out of this base. It outperformed like 2 months ago, and now it's just been base building while the market's been moving higher, but that's just kind of how the market ebbs and flows. So if this can break this down trend line with some volume, hold above these moving averages, this looks good. And then just to know earnings in 10 days. Palo Alto, some of these cybersecurity stocks have been strong. Crowds kind of trying to turn around. And then, you have FTNT that looks good as well. But this one is getting a nice like 6-day flag here right under highs. This one looks good if it can break out. And that's kind of what I like to see is if a stock shoots up multiple days up in a row into a breakout spot, it's kind of a harder breakout to buy, right? Because it said 5 days up into a breakout spot, you'd be buying day 6 of that, like of the cycle of the move. But now this multi-day flag consolidation makes this one more attractive. CEG, this one looks good, building higher lows. Clear theme here with alternative energy, the number one ranked industry group right now, but obviously the uranium, alternative energy, nuclear, all these stocks were really strong last week. Uber, so had that gapped up the other week into new highs, but now it's coming back into the 21-day. This could be a decent risk to reward entry. You have pretty tight risk here with that 21-day right there. If you look at the 60-minute, this has got a really clear downtrend line. So if you can get through there, that could maybe lead to a pop. And then obviously some of these unfilled gaps here, those can sometimes be resistance above. So we'll see there. But this is kind of like a pullback setup idea. I just want to mention this one because This one's been super strong off that earnings gap. And, if you travel, Clear Secure, it's getting pretty big now. And they also have other angles to their business as well with like the security. Haven't looked into it a whole lot, but I believe they do have some other angles. But this one I just wanted to mention because it's very strong and it's, 33.85 would be a level I would expect to hold on a pullback. So we'll see there. So that's kind of some names on the watch list. Cart as well. This one looks really good. Flagging here. It got that pop last week with Motley Fool naming them as like a top pick, but I like how this is consolidating. Definitely breaking above this IPO base here. This one looks good for continuation next week. So those are some names on the watch list for next week. And then just some other things. I mentioned fintech. I'll just go over some names and some other groups. SoFi is another one. This obviously we're not going to buy this one, but this is a huge base. It's breaking out fintech sector as well. And then you can look at names like PayPal. This is coming back from the dead. This one looks really good. Square earnings in 11 days, but getting back above the 200-day. So that's that group. And then the electrical power industry group, VRT, they report next week. This one's super strong. And then you got names like what's it? BWXT. This is in that same sector, very strong. Showed ants the other week. And then just some other things. I mentioned CEG, but you can look at names like VST. This actually had a better day on Friday than CEG. This one looks good. And then some of just these old utility stocks, Duke Energy, SO, really strong charts. This theme's been very strong and trending for some time. You got cruise lines are acting well, CCL, RCL. So, maybe the consumer's not that bad if they're taking cruises and going on vacation. Retail restaurants, Kava looks great. We own this one. And then nice supportive action from other names. Eats one into new highs. And then you have Texas Roadhouse. This kind of starting to break out of the space. And then Wingstop's another one. This one's pulling back into the 200-day. This is one of the weaker links in the group. So we'll see. And then I mentioned gold. You can just see these AEMs breaking out, AGI. What else are there? EGO. Just a lot of big moves from a lot of the gold miner stocks. And that continues to be a pretty long, like massive monthly breakout for gold. And these things have quite a lot of room here. Look at the monthly. And then another group I wanted to mention, cybersecurity, FTNT, putting an upside reversal here at the 21-day. And then I mentioned Palo Alto looks good. And then CyberArk as well. This tried to break out on Friday, but closed near the lows of the day, below that 300 level. So maybe this one needs a little bit more time. And then Sentinel-1, this one's kind of making the turn as well, building higher lows and attempting this 2662. That's kind of the top. Has a little bit of like an ascending base look, but this one has good numbers. And a lot of people are talking about how, that incident with CrowdStrike, that should benefit some of these ones. And then I did mention Robinhood, and I also wanted to show some of these other brokers. Jefferies, super strong trend here. Interactive Brokers. This one had some volatility on earnings, but nevertheless, really nice trend. So that's that group. And then the computer software enterprise group that I showed, Datadog, IoT. This one looks good. It's finally starting to get an opportunity, kind of getting tight, see if it can get back through 50 with volume and confirm that could be a breakout potentially. Palantir, one of the strongest stocks in the market right now. And, one thing we actually mentioned on our call is that in here, Palantir was quite a choppy stock. Every time it tried to break out, came back in, and it just didn't have any trend. But now you can see once they got added to the S&P 500 and that, it's just clear character change for the stock. And now it's actually trending nicely. Dips are getting bought and buying strength is getting rewarded. And then you have names like ServiceNow. There's reports this week. This is a super strong stock as well. And then like a name like Monday as well. kind of into new highs. Super choppy over here, but maybe the character change of the stock's changing. As you can see, it's not mean reverting back every time it pops. So that's kind of what you want to see. You want to focus on stocks that can show you they have the ability to trend versus choppy ones. They're just a lot harder to trade, a lot harder to hold, and just make it easier on yourself and focus on stocks that are trending to the right side. So those are some stocks for the week ahead that I'm watching. Let's take a look at the economic calendar. Pretty quiet week, to be honest. We have jobless claims on Thursday and not a whole lot. That's good. So hopefully, not a ton of market moving events. And then let's take a look at earnings. Basically, the ones of interest, STX Seagate, that is on Tuesday after the close. Let's take a look at that chart. That's in that data storage industry group as well. Micron's in there as well, trying to hold above the 200-day. So we'll see what STX has to say. Could move the rest of the sector. And then Wednesday, VRT, that's a big one before the open. And then you also have GE Vernova. That's another one in that alternative energy space that's been very strong. And then Tesla, that's a big one Wednesday after the close. Netflix kicked it off last week. Strong start for tech. So we'll see if Tesla can continue. And then LRCX got hammered last week. Maybe earnings can revive this thing. IBM, I'll just pull up that chart because you never know. This is an old stock that didn't do anything for 10 years. It hit highs and topped out in 2013 and didn't do anything for 10 years. Now it's breaking out. So, sometimes these things can take quite some time, but if there's a material change in the business and something's changing, it's when you start to see it turn around. ServiceNow is another big one for that computer software enterprise industry group. VKTX for biotech. Carrier, this is like they do like something with cooling and stuff and heating products, but this one's got a really nice chart. So we'll see what that one has to say. And then Decker's Thursday after the close. And that's really it. Getting back into the bulk of the earnings seasons where, we started off with the banks, they did well, and now we get more into the tech names and some of the growth stocks that we more so follow. So yeah, I hope that helps. That's kind of what I'm watching for the week ahead, how I get prepared. And if you guys enjoyed it, drop it a like, comment, subscribe. We always interact with the viewers, so we always appreciate that. And if you're ever interested in becoming a client, you can always reach out. So that is going to wrap it for Sunday, October 20th, 4:56 p.m. Eastern Time. This is Connor Bates with Revere Asset Management, telling it like it is. Thanks for watching and good luck this week.